It's the middle of July and I'm going down south to visit some of my family members in Charlotte, North Carolina. Of course, in order to fulfill my goal of riding every single Amtrak route, I decided to take the Carolinian down to its terminus of Charlotte, the Piedmont 2 stops at Salisbury, and the Crescent back to New York. Since the Carolinian only runs once a day, I decided to stay at New York City and stay overnight in order to catch its daily departure at 7:25 a.m. While there, I also visited a restaurant in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, as well as the Museum of Natural History with a few friends in order to pass the time on the 14th. Of course, I'll be posting whatever catches I was able to get on my phone camera in this video, as well as a bit of a description for each. On my trip into the city, I caught some vegetation work at Bethpage Junction that caused us the wrong rail, and an M3 with a yellow band, indicating that it does not have PTC and cannot lead. After leaving Penn Station next to an under construction Track 13, I soon caught an Air Force sticker unit with what looks like some sort of equipment move, an old Fire Anderson sign near North Philly, and of course, I rushed over to the other side of the train at Philly 30th Street Yard to catch the two brand new Avelia Liberty train sets. But not only did I find the two HSTs in all their glory, but I also found two ALC 42s, specifically 308 and 309 Phase 6 and Phase 7 respectively, likely for testing. Afterwards, I passed SEPTA's Elmwood Yard with PCCs and Type Ks, Wilmington Maintenance Facility with lots of HHP8s, GP38s, MLW cars, and a wrecked ACS-64 under tarps, and in the Baltimore region, an NS Local, a Mark bi-level car en route for a rebuild, an Amtrak MOW vehicle in the same yard, a hastily repainted XNJT Jeep leading a Mark MP Express, and a chassis system caboose at Bowie. Eventually, I arrived at the massive Ivy City Yard in DC, unfortunately too late to take a photo of a CSX Gevo behind a P42 in the yard, which was soon made up by a 5-engine equipment move. A few minutes later, in typical Railfanning fashion, I decided to watch the engine move all the way at the front of the train, but by the time I walked there, the ACS-64 already pulled out, but was still waiting at the switches. This would be the beginning of an almost hour-long delay at DC, first due to the Cardinal having priority over the Carolinian, so why not get footage of that leaving next to me? However, the Cardinal's departure soon revealed a problem for the Carolinian. There was no diesel on standby at any of the tracks, so a new engine had to be called down all the way from Ivy City to the Carolinian. Once the line was clear for our previous engine, the ACS-64 was switched onto a standby track. About 20 minutes later, Amtrak 112 finally rolled past the Carolinian, getting ready to back up into it and bring the train on its way to Charlotte.
Right. Right.
From here on out, most of the landscape became much more scenic and rural, with more freights passing our Carolinian, including a 6-engine CSX Manifest with 2-8s. Other notable engines include the CSX Safety Train, a lone GATX MP15DC, and an SC40-3 sandwiched between somewhat rare GEs. Ironically, there was a spare P42 waiting at Raleigh as soon as we arrived, but it wasn't attached to our train, which was again stopped just before Cary in order to let an eastbound Piedmont pass by, which somehow messed up the quality of my phone camera. Eventually, the Carolinian arrived in Charlotte about 2 hours late, and I was soon caught up in heavy local traffic since the concert just let out of the Bank of America Stadium. Finally, I arrived at my hotel room at JW Marriott with a good view of the highway and a little bit of the light rail system. The next day, I boarded the Piedmont at Charlotte at 10:30 a.m. en route to Salisbury for the North Carolina Transportation Museum, where I was welcomed to beautifully refurbished interiors of classic Pullman coaches and a sticker with a Siemens charger, even though the line is the only state-funded route to not have any charger replacements on order. Only 40 minutes later, I pulled into Salisbury on time where my uncle drove me the few miles over to Spencer, so sit back and enjoy the footage of the NCTM.
Oh, in a hospital. This is the hospital.
Gonna keep pushing. We haven't got enough fuel left to hold the keel down. If I know him, he'll run the rope out and then add some string to it. Where do you know him? From the academy. He instructed there for 3 years. We call him the Rock. Get hell out of you. He's all Navy and nothing but Navy. I don't think he ever left the campus. Like it was a ship and he had nowhere else to go. Sonar contact, sir, bearing 020, range 2,000.
go out this door, and then there's a sidewalk that'll lead you around the turntable to the other side. And it's right there when you walk in. Yeah. Yeah, you go either way.
After a nice dinner with more family members and trying to watch Game of Thrones with a DVD player I packed at the hotel room, I decided to check out a few points of interest that Charlotte had to offer. After hours of planning placed me at a late start. The two most notable for this video were a Gainesville Railroad steam engine at Freedom Park and the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which I was intrigued to visit as an avid Cars fan. Later in the day, I decided to ride part of Charlotte Light Rail's recently opened northern extension, but it was starting to get late and I had to turn back at Sugar Creek, where a connection was thankfully only a few minutes away.
El tren se acerca. Mantenga despejado el borde del andén.
The next day, I went to Charlotte to board the once daily and 90-minute delayed Crescent back to New York at about 7 a.m., this time with Phase 2 Heritage Unit 130 on the lead, as I was immediately greeted by a few NS-9s as soon as I pulled out of the station, as well as a Piedmont at High Point. After some scenic views and only a few Norfolk Southern trains later, I eventually arrived in DC, where I was just able to reach the front of the train on time for a great engine swap with plenty of action, and with the standby electric waiting past the platform.
Crescent Train 20 en route to New York Penn Station with intermediate stops at Baltimore, Wilmington, Philadelphia, Trenton, Newark. Passengers should proceed to Gate J, track 25. Thank you for choosing Amtrak.
After leaving DC and passing by the already wide diesel leaders of the Crescent, I passed by new platforms at Baltimore Penn, a CSX SC70 Mac leading the freight overhead, and ALC 42s 311 and 312 at Wilmington, while the two ALC 42s at Philly were gone with private cars nearby. After many local stops in New Jersey, the Crescent finally pulled into Penn Station about 3 hours late, where I was able to rest for a bit at the Moynihan train lounge since I traveled in the sleeper car from Charlotte to Penn, where the lounge had a balcony and even a model of an Avelia Liberty. Finally, my trip to North Carolina was sealed with a short New York and Atlantic freight passing by right next to me at Ronkonkoma, a perfect way to end a railfanning-filled vacation.